WWE here kicking off middle of September. WWE Triple H effect. A lot of great things happening post Clash at the Castle, or as Austin Theory said this past week, Crown Jewel, before he had to be corrected. Yeah, but the Triple H effect, there is definitely no doubt about it. I want to first start off with Triple H's comments pre-Clash at the Castle about AEW beating NXT, quote unquote, our developmental brand, when Triple H clearly has said before that it was a third brand. What do you make of those comments of Triple H kind of saying that?
I'll be honest with you. It's, to me, I think when NXT 2.0 was rebranded that way, it appeared that it was a developmental brand anyways at that point. So that's
the 2.0, but I don't think he was referring to AEW beating NXT 2.0. I think he was referring to AEW beating NXT Black and Gold.
I don't think it was Black and Gold. I think when NXT was Black and Gold, which it looks like they're going back to that, the competition was like neck and neck. And ever since the 2.0 factor came in, like, we know AEW's been doing better. I mean, the thing with AEW is, which we'll get to a little bit later, but there's a lot of black eye, a lot of a black eye that's been going on in AEW recently. So with this NXT rebranding, because I guess it's rebranding the old brand, I guess is how we look at it.
Yeah, they're getting rid of the 2.0, and they're kind of,
this is a good thing. It looks like
gold and white.
This is good, by the way.
No, definitely, this is definitely good.
The Triple H effect is going to be. Obviously, it's already been felt throughout WWE. You're seeing more enthusiasm. I mean, all reports that I've seen out there, the boys and the girls in the back are very happy. It's more loose. Like, they're not worried about if they have a misstep that, oh, Vince is going to, fire us, kind of a thing. Like, it's more relaxed. Yes, you're still supposed to do your job. You're supposed to do it the right way. You're supposed to conduct yourself as a professional. But there's more leeway. And Triple H and company, because you can't forget about Steph, being the co-CEO of WWE. They're letting things. I feel like it's what WWE should have been doing even before AEW was in the picture. Like this, like what they're doing, they're bringing back all this talent. Braun Strowman just recently came back since we recorded last, which we previewed that he was probably coming back anyways. But all these different moves, Dexter Lumis is being packaged, presented the right way. I think what they're doing creatively is fantastic. And another part of the Triple H effect, Seth Rollins is going to be back in a major title picture very soon here. Kevin Owens cut one of the best promos I've seen in WWE in a long time, and he pretty much ripped Austin Theory, which now he's going by two names again, which is great.
Yes.
He ripped him to pieces, and it was such a fiery, it was very, like, it's kind of one of those promos where if you're in the locker room, you want to come through that curtain and just put on a banger of a match, because Kevin Owens just tore the house down with that promo. I think this Triple H effect is really just made it more fun, I feel.
Then this is what I never really understand before is I understand you're all about making money, and I understand WWE why they did some of the things that they did, in the sense of, I try telling people nowadays that WWE makes more money than they ever did during the Attitude Era. But I don't understand why, it had to suffer the wrestling product. And Triple H is an example right now how we can have a good wrestling product, still not be AEW. You can just have a good wrestling product with WWE spin on it and make money.
And here's the thing.
And that's what doesn't make any sense, is because I feel the ratings have been up.
Yes, the interest is up.
The interest is up. So if Vince's whole thing was more about making money than it was to have a wrestling product, it's more or less how much money can I make? How can I get this out?
He's running it as a business, not a show, so to speak.
Yeah, so I guess I don't understand why he wouldn't have been running it the Triple H way, because the Triple H way both makes more money, more interest, and keeps fans happy.
It just makes more sense. And for example, look at the match in particular on Raw that under Vince, it doesn't happen. Johnny Gargano versus Chad Gable in what I would call a technical classic, by the way. That was a hell of a match. And you definitely would not have seen a match like that under Vince's watch. It's just not something that Vince wanted to see. He would have had Omos and they're destroying somebody instead. That's kind of what Vince would have done. But as you saw a clinic. You see more freedom in promos. You're actually seeing NXT also, now that they're kind of going back to the old school and not the 2.0 version anymore. You're seeing like a Solo Sikoa winning a major championship in NXT this past week, which can also be built into a storyline for the main show. It's like Triple H and company. They're doing a great job because they're incorporating NXT the right way. You're not oversaturating NXT, on the main card. You're not oversaturating the main card to the NXT. It's enough. It's kind of like sprinkled in just enough. And it's also good because there's storylines involved. Now the Bloodline's got more belts. Solo Sikoa looks legit. It's the way things are being tied together from top to bottom is absolutely fantastic. And let's not forget, we have great women's wrestling, and we don't even have all the big names. That's the thing. You don't have the big stars. I mean, Sasha Banks is doing Vogue covers these days. I don't know if you saw that.
Naomi and Sasha Banks were both running the walkway or walking the walkway at Fashion Week in New York City.
Yes, and
it's weird how they're staying together. I mean, like they both left, but I mean they weren't essentially like a tag team coming in. But it seems like they're very unified now outside of WWE.
And let's not forget too, Bayley's also involved in that too because they both came out. Sasha and Naomi. There was a picture of the three of them that was circulating all over the internet, where pretty much Sasha and Naomi were saying Bayley had their back the entire time. So I mean, Bayley's one of the girls too. Especially with those two, considering how things played out with Sasha and Naomi, and even regardless. Even if it could have put their job, put Bayley's job on the chopping block potentially, I don't think that was really there. But she values friendships more than it wasn't like, oh, if WWE finds out that I'm still friendly with them, I'm worried about losing my job. I think it was like she just shows her loyalty, and it just shows that Bayley's a very loyal friend, and that goes further than the wrestling business itself.
At Clash of the Castle, one thing I will say is that when this was announced, I was bringing up like, how are you going to have this and SummerSlam back to back? Because this seems to overshadow SummerSlam when it comes to the announcement and being a bigger deal at that time. And then Clash of the Castle, I feel, other than the main event, which was great, I feel like the event overall really fell flat. Most champions, all champions, even the main event, kept their championships. There was the absence of the Ronda Rouseys of the world, the Bobby Lashleys of the world, who are all on the current roster.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar, none of these big names were there. They didn't turn it into a weekend like WrestleMania style. And I asked this before, what about Clash of the Castle? Why couldn't that have been done in the last 20 years? There's what is the reasoning behind the fact that WWE's been to England? They've been all over the world. They've been to Saudi Arabia 10 times. So what was the reasoning that they couldn't have had Clash of the Castle or, whatever, WrestleMania Backlash, No Mercy, Tables, Ladders, and Chairs, whatever pay-per-view that you had in Kansas City or whatever pay-per-view you had in Atlanta, Georgia? What is the reasoning you couldn't have had that in England this whole time?
I agree. I mean, it's weird to think about it that way, but maybe it was just the excuse they'll probably use is this wasn't logistically possible, or some stuff like that. Which, let's be honest, if they want to make it happen, they'll make it happen. But I think the way I thought the show itself was pretty good. I mean, you didn't. I mean, for what it was. I mean, what did you think of Clash of the Castle? I thought it was better than All Out.
I don't think it was a show worthy of 68,000 people. I would say that much. It happened in the United States. It was that kind of show that in the United States, I feel like it was a one match show. I feel like it was the Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, the whole his homeland thing. But the rest of the pay-per-view seemed like just a traditional.
So you didn't like Gunther and Sheamus? I thought that was that was a great match.
I mean and that's the match right there that you're not seeing under Vince.
No, 100% not. And then obviously another match that I'm just looking at the card, just refreshing my memory. I feel like it's been forever since we did the show. I mean, I remember watching Matt Riddle and Seth freaking Rollins. That was another good match. That went.
No, the matches were good. It didn't feel like WrestleMania at any. It didn't have that feel.
I don't think they were presenting it that way, to be honest with you.
Well, outside of WrestleMania, it's the only wrestling show since WrestleMania that's gotten 60,000 plus. I mean, remember SummerSlam had 40,000.
But here's the thing, though, and that's why like when AEW talks about like how popular they are in the UK, I still don't buy it, because even I would say a decent pay-per-view on paper, which obviously turned out to be a good show, still drew over 60,000 people. AEW's not doing that. Last time I checked. So when I hear, I think I heard Tony Schiavone fairly recently. It might have been one of the other announcers. Yeah, we're AEW is the most popular wrestling show in the UK. How? You're getting 60,000 and it doesn't even have Brock Lesnar on the card. It doesn't have The Rock. It doesn't have like all these big names. Hell, there wasn't even a Becky Lynch on there, so to speak. And Charlotte Flair. It was a decent card that drew 60,000+ fans, and those fans had a hell of a time. They were very involved in the show. And let's be honest, the UK fans are pretty damn good anyway.
And I understand that Saudi Arabia gives WWE a lot of money, but it's just kind of disrespectful that it took this long, because they have, you can't even talk about like the time frame. I understand it's going to be on at 1 PM on the East Coast and 10 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast here in the United States. Those were things. They've had like 5 or 6 Crown Jewels and Superstar Showdowns and like all these other events in which they've already had one in Australia because they had that Superstar Showdown, but they've had, like I said, the Crown Jewels and these other events that one time was on a Thursday at noon. So I'm just saying, it'd be like if MLB baseball has been playing exhibition games at the Field of Dreams for the last 10 years and has been playing games and has all the logistics figured out when it comes to playing games. They're just like, oh, but we're not counting them as regular season games. And I feel like even in that sense, there would be more issue because, you're taking a home game away from a team and there's all the logistics that come with that. This is essentially like that doesn't happen. This is essentially like we've been having these events. We've been going to England and we've been having 60,000 seat stadium events in Saudi Arabia at 1 PM. I just wonder what took so long, essentially. And what's going to take so long for them to do it? Like Triple H said in the post game or the post match and stuff that like, now they plan on doing this more often. Like, I don't understand why they weren't doing it to begin with more often. Like, this isn't a new market.
Talk about timing, by the way. If Clash of the Castle was just a few weeks later, it could have gotten postponed because of the passing of the Queen. Because a lot of they shut down the country essentially for like 12 days.
How does it? I mean, I don't know the logistics.
Soccer was stopped. All soccer in the English Premier League was stopped. To celebrate Queen Elizabeth II.
I know Cardiff, Wales, obviously is underneath that banner, but I'm not sure exactly to what extent.
They're still the UK. It's still the UK. It's under that umbrella. So I feel like they made obviously the show happened. It's just the timing of it. It would have been. I would have been interested to see how that would have played out because in the music world, Garth Brooks is a big name in not only country but in the music world. He had a show in Ireland. And they were calling for him to cancel, and he still did the show because it happened around, obviously, the passing of the Queen.
Personal. I don't understand any of that stuff. I'm not. I don't understand the importance. I mean, it's a 96. I know I get what you're saying, but personally, I'm just saying, as a 96-year-old woman who died of natural causes. I mean, life happens. I mean, this isn't.
I know. I get that, but the thing is, you have to look at it from she's essentially been a part of everybody's life since World War II. You know what I mean? Like she's been in power as like she was helping the post World War II. So there's a lot of history there. And I mean, she even had a recent public appearance even before, her recent passing.
When Kim Kardashian passes away at the age of 96, I feel like it's going to be the same here in the United States.
I mean, I would say from historical purposes, I hope that's not the case. But I mean, the Queen, it was. I mean, you gotta remember, like the way they do things in the UK. I mean, the Queen was very important to a lot of people, and she was if I remember, she was like the longest reigning queen in like recent memory. I'm not the expert on the royals. I just the little bit that I read, of course, how it affected the sports world is kind of where I was looking at. And I just thought, hey, imagine if the show would have been just a few short weeks later, we might not even have had Clash of the Castle.
And again, with the whole UK theme, you wouldn't even have to change the name if maybe like this upcoming Royal Rumble was in the UK or something like that. But that's going to be at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. They've made it official. that's where it's going to be.
Great place for a show.
Great place. I'm happy I haven't gone there yet. Because,
well, I guess you got to check it off.
Well, I'm going to go there, but I'm happy I haven't gone there because, it starts to come around where you go to WrestleManias and you think it's cool because every year you're like somewhere new, and then they start to recycle it, and then you kind of wonder like, do I need to return? Like
kind of like AEW in Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
they go to every place in Chicago.
AEW is a little bit different in that sense of they're a little bit newer of a company. I mean, they've been around for a little bit now, but with like the Royal Rumble, for example, if the Royal Rumble is in 4 years, if it's in San Antonio, I don't know. I might have to pick another event that I want to go to that year. If I go to San Antonio this upcoming year,
I will say this,
and then the Royal Rumble returns in like 2 years.
Eventually, I
might say, let's go to Elimination Chamber.
I would love to see an event at the Alamo Dome. I don't know if it's going to be the one that's upcoming, but a future event in the Alamo Dome. I can't think of
I mean, that and the Alamo Bowl, right? I mean, your options there.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see a wrestling show there just because it's just a cool venue.
This would be your one option to go see a wrestling show, the Royal Rumble, and then
they'll have it again there. I'm not even worried about it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not. Hopefully, it's not going to be for another 5 years.
Yeah,
or so.
I would say if you can put something in rotation every 5 years, that's okay. I feel like, I mean, you've been to almost every city, I feel like, so.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I'm glad that like LA is, I mean, I've been to LA, but I'm glad I've never been to SoFi, you know what I mean? And I think like in a couple years, if they return to SoFi, I mean, LA's different, I guess, because it's a big place and you can do whatever I do this time around, I can do the complete opposite next time around. But like a San Antonio, when I go to the Royal Rumble, I'm actually going to probably make it a pretty quick trip because I don't need to go to Austin. I don't need to go to Dallas. I don't need to go to Houston. I've been to those places. So it's really just going to be...
San Antonio's a cool city.
It's going to be a stay in San Antonio kind of thing. So if they were to get it again or they were to get, SummerSlam next year, I'd kind of wonder, like, what am I going to do?
Just remember the Alamo. And remember the Alamo, all right?
And the Alamo also doesn't have a basement. But, moving on to the Royal Rumble and future is, we are starting to get kind of wondering what Roman Reigns' future is with the two titles. A lot of people inside the business are talking about Roman splitting up the titles, having two titles going into WrestleMania. But at the same time, you don't really want Roman to lose. You don't know who Roman loses to. It's like my own life over here. Love to get married and have kids someday, but also don't. What do we do here with Roman Reigns?
Well, it's funny you mention that because we're both on two totally different ends of that spectrum, aren't we?
Yes.
But for Roman Reigns, you just can't. You can't take the belts off him right now. You just can't. You can't split it up. It has to stay undisputed.
Like, I mean, what do we got? 7 belts on the bloodline right now.
That's awesome. It just shows how dominant of a faction they are. It's cool. And here's the other thing. Speaking of the product, belts, different, different, I would say different levels of competition in WWE. I think if Braun Strowman can be packaged as like a mid-card beast, I think that's
what they're doing. I mean, he's been attacking Otis and those kind of guys so far.
I want to see him in Lashley.
Because right now,
that's the payoff for me.
Well,
I want to see those two beasts.
I mean, it looks like they might be taking the belt off. There's, the strong rumors are Seth Rollins is facing Bobby Lashley this upcoming week on Monday Night Raw, and the strong rumors are that Seth could be making a run with that U.S. belt.
I mean, that'd be kind of cool because it'd be different. I mean, I know usually he's in the the bigger titles, but I mean, you can't have him always in the main event picture. I get it. So I mean, but it would also bring kind of that main event level. I guess, attention to the U.S. title.
It's funny. Extreme Rules is coming up in a few weeks for Philadelphia, and Extreme Rules was just in Philadelphia in 2019, and a banger of a match that happened at that event was Braun Strowman versus Bobby Lashley. So, like, maybe you don't want to have it like a literal rerun this time around, so you might want to save that for the next pay-per-view. But I guess Roman Reigns, he's champion, double champion, and normally a Survivor Series is champion versus champion. So what do you do with Roman Reigns at the Survivor Series?
You just keep the belts on him.
But who do you have him face, I guess? Like, do you do like a bloodline versus?
I mean, that's what you normally would do. You would do a bloodline versus whoever, like other top 4 superstars that are involved. Maybe Randy Orton makes a surprise back or, something along those lines. That's what you do. You protect, it's like you protect the egg, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You protect the egg. In this case, you protect the Roman Reigns title reign where he doesn't have to put the title on the line. And that's exactly what you do at Survivor Series. You do a bloodline versus whoever in a nice traditional One of my favorite shows, Survivor Series style match.
Do you think there will be any threats to any of Roman Reigns' championships between today and January 1st?
No. Zero chance, in my opinion.
I think Drew McIntyre was the last credible threat.
Yes.
To take any of the belts off of him.
You're not.
I don't think he's even going to be putting the belt on the line at Extreme Rules. It probably might not even be on the card.
The next time Roman Reigns loses the belt is at WrestleMania.
Any belt. You think he's going in there with both belts?
Yes. I think he is. It's right now the way he's the most dominant wrestler in every, it doesn't matter what promotion. As much as people take with a grain of salt with the PWI rankings, which that's a whole different topic, but he's number one for a reason. Mm-hmm. He's the most he is the business right now. Like he's head and shoulders above everybody else. And to do anything but have him keep those titles around his waist until WrestleMania would just be a disservice to the business, I think, right now. It's the best thing going.
So Roman Reigns is leading the WWE right now. Triple H is changing things up. The end of NXT 2.0, obviously the series finale and the season premiere, I guess you would say, next week of NXT. The return. You know, I didn't watch NXT for like a year, and it's great because it's like it was like a year, not like a wasted year, but it seems like a wasted year of NXT. Like, and I wonder how many people are going to come back on board next week, and we're going to just pretend this year and a half or so of NXT just never even existed. It's crazy because they were only NXT 2.0 for, I think, 1 year from like last week until like that's why last week was the season finale. So it's really that NXT 2.0 was just going to be one of those like weird random years in history that seem to just
kind of like the Thunderdome era.
Kind of like the Thunderdome era.
In a different way, yes. But it'll be remembered for its own little shtick in the history book, so to speak.
It'll be like the red, the Cincinnati Redlegs.
No.
You know what I'm talking about. So the Cincinnati Redlegs, if you remember, obviously going back, many, many years, Reds was a hot button issue here in the United States with communism and wars with the Cold War with Russia and stuff like that. So for like a few seasons, the Cincinnati Reds became the Cincinnati Redlegs. And then went back to Cincinnati Reds when it was okay. So there's like those 3 anomaly years where they're like Cincinnati Reds for 80 years, Redlegs for like 3 years, back to Reds for like another 80 years.
I get it for the political reasons.
So it's going to be like NXT 2.0, NXT again.
That's a pretty good analogy. I can't. There's not much I can add to that.
So we will talk more WWE next week if anything crazy. I mean, there's just so much great stuff to talk about. Dexter Lumis showing up in the Miz's house.
I'll just say this to put a capper on this whole Triple H WWE just the last few weeks since Triple H has been in power. Mm-hmm. It's just refreshing. Like it's just the product in WWE is just so much better, and it's I look forward to watching it every week now again.